Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rebecca Saunders Show. Today I'm joined by the wonderful Kelly Carthy, who I've had the privilege of knowing for a great number of years. Now, Kelly is a global leadership strategist and she specializes in InsideOut leadership. And I've brought her on the show today because she talks a lot and does a huge amount of work with global leaders on designing the life you want to live, having greater choices and less obligations. And I know there's a lot of people out there that definitely want a life of greater choice and less obligation to others. So welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a privilege.
I'm very excited to have you on the show. Now, you and I go back probably 8 years, I reckon now. We met in your hometown of Noosa. Well, hometown, it may not be your hometown, but it's where you live now, for a Women in Focus conference all those years ago. And I know that you had a huge impact on me then with our stand-up paddleboarding experience. And since then, I've watched your work grow and grow and grow and get deeper and deeper and deeper. So, in your own words, what is it that you do and what is Inside Out leadership?
So it's a beautiful way to lead in because that immersive experience that we had in Noosa was a really great illustration of the work that I do. I shift leaders out of that thinking about leadership, out of that structured approach and that learnt leadership to embodied leadership through immersive experiences. So when we're in person, that can look like seemingly just going for a stand-up paddleboard, which we both know was so much more than just paddleboarding. Moving. It's like this really discreet way of being so immersed in an experience that it is life-changing. And I create, immersive pre-COVID immersive experiences internationally with my clients. And then also, and particularly in the last couple of years online, being able to do that through coaching, through meditative processes, and also through immersive experiences online. So I've been running remote retreats for the last year or so with my inner mastery members and my one-on-one clients, and being able to shift them from that place of focusing everything out there to really coming back to here and everything leading from within.
And what makes that so important? Like, I know that living busy lives, with all the pressures of the outside world, let's add the stress of COVID on top. It's not an easy thing to master, coming and looking inside to lead outside. So why is it so important that leaders look to do these things differently?
Well, my experience came when my whole world came crumbling around me, and I really recognized just how much of my life was being governed by my external world. And when I flipped that and shifted into allowing this to be the governance, and it doesn't mean it's not an ego-based thing where I know it all, because that's definitely not the case. I have so many mentors and teachers and people that I look to for inspiration. It's the decisions that you make come from here. So you can take in all this amazing external influence, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to take it all in and then say, okay, what do I choose? And the challenge with that is so many of us are so pulled in so many different directions by roles and responsibilities and who we need to be for this or who we need to be for that role, that we lose that. And the thing is, it's not somewhere you land. I practice this on a daily basis. Every challenge that shows up, I get to practice this and learn a completely new way of doing it. It's one of the reasons why I created, my membership in a mastery, because it really allows us to remember that this is a practice. You don't just get it, you practice it day in, day out. And meditation is obviously one way to access that, but there are so many other ways that we can actually integrate into our busy lives that can shift the way that we carry ourselves and force ourselves to stand back before we leap forward. So we're starting to respond rather than reacting. And the reason that that's so important is because in my experience and in experiences that I watch in my clients, when we're not governed by this, when we're being pulled, by our emotions or by our reactions, we one can be in that practice of taking that step back and taking a breath, dropping in, tuning out to tune in, we start to make better choices for us.
Yeah. And I can feel the feels coming through me now going, I'm in that state personally right now of, still got to master some more of this, like being pulled in all those different directions. And I think what I'd love to sort of understand and deep dive with you is where do you start? Like where, obviously it's a practice. It's something that you need to continue doing and crafting each and every day. But if everything is just bombarding you right now, the people around you may not understand the fact that you are wanting to slow down to speed up. What are the little things that can be done to just start that awareness and start that shift?
Absolutely. I often talk, so my clients are very used to me talking about microshifts. It's how I work. It's how I've worked since I was, a personal trainer, incrementally shifting things to just sneak up on my clients that they'd suddenly have this transformation and go, oh, how did that happen? And I do the same with the work that I do, because in this world, as you say, we're so busy. We're doing so much. And I've had that experience not just once, but multiple times of burnout. And when everything is coming at you, you can't think of even, reading a book or doing a course or, doing anything more. You cannot add anything more. It's about subtracting it. And it's not about subtracting it all at once, unless, of course, you have that horrible experience of a breakdown and everything just crumbles around you. If you are really aware that that's something that is really important to you, it's what is the smallest shift that I can make in this day now that is going to shift me back into that center. And I did this for the client last night. She's in that sprint at the moment. She's running that race, and I don't look at balance or capacity or what you're doing as something that's static. It's dynamic. It's always changing and it's fluid. And you are going to have times when you have 5 deadlines and you've got to get things done, and you're not going to go to the gym, and you're not going to get the self-care that you would love to have the time for. And it's what's that tiny little thing. And yesterday I spoke of in a live broadcast, 1 minute meditation, and people kind of roll their eyes and go like, well, what's 1 minute going to do really? Well, that's 1 minute of space that you didn't have before. And that 1 minute of space, that 1 minute of breath could create an incredible solution for something in your life. It could slow you down enough that you recognize the things that are not relevant in this day. It just brings you back to you. And if you can just be in that simple practice to start, you're starting to now tune in. And you're starting to pull yourself back from being out there to coming back in here. And that's that first step of coming back into your body and making the choices from here. Yeah.
So I've got in my head right now, I'm not a meditation queen by any stretch of the imagination. I find it like my brain goes into a washing machine of thoughts, which I know is something that's normal. Over the next. That's normal. That's good. That's good. For someone that doesn't do meditation and has no idea like what it's even supposed to feel like. I mean, for me, you've just said it's normal. That's good. That makes me feel like I'm doing something, maybe this is what it's supposed to be like. What is the key of meditation? Where do you start? What does that even 1 minute look like to someone who's crazy busy? Is it sitting in a corner in silence somewhere? Where do you start with that 60 seconds?
It looks like tuning into yourself, right? And sometimes that's actually allowing the monkey mind to do its thing. And this is the one thing. And, I talk about meditation. There are so many different ways to meditate. And it doesn't have to be like I can name it something else. And it can just be that process of tuning back. Meditation is pointless until they experience the benefits of. And one of the biggest things that blocks people from starting is that fear of sitting still and doing nothing. And in actual fact, as you say, your mind's still going. And given that 95% of our day is done unconsciously, it's habitual, we have very few moments in our time when we're consciously thinking about the next step. We're always in routine and ritual and doing the things that are just, coming naturally, to the point where if you suddenly change your route one day, you'll find yourself the next day going back to the old route because you are just in the habit of doing that.
Yeah.
So if we're going to adjust that, we need to be aware of what are those programs that are running and what are the ones that we want to change and shift. And so the awareness is the first piece. So when you're breathing and you're allowing those thoughts to go, at least you're now aware that those thoughts are there. And some of my most effective emotions have been when I'm sitting down for even 10 minutes and thinking this is an absolute waste of my time. My mind is so busy. I've got so much to do. This is not working. This is not working. This is not working. And then something will happen in that day and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was because I sat down and just allowed all of that stuff to go on that this shift happened. So I think it's, as with so many things in my work, it's looking at it differently and recognizing that it's not what it's not what it appears to be. It's how you experience it. That's the most important thing.
And it is, and I suppose despite the fact of being your own thoughts and your own processes, I suppose you can't almost control them to a point when you're just starting out and going through that motion. So to learn that you just need to embrace it ever so slightly and just get there small steps, I think is a huge thing that I know a lot of people listening will go, 60 seconds, even 10 minutes a day, like that's not a huge amount of time in the grand scheme of things. So definitely that stepping back piece, just to have space. Now, I'm going to sort of twist this on its head a little bit in terms of the space piece, because you touched on at the very beginning of our chat the fact that you've been running retreats virtually over the last 2 years, and you launched into this year going, I've got this retreat, I'm going to bring people together in person. And you talk a lot about the fact that things are completely out of your control, that there is a deeper purpose to everything that happens. I'd love to understand what it was like going into that retreat for you, and in your own words, in your own time, what unfolded through that and what has that rippling impact been on you and the way you're seeing life now?
Yeah, it's a big one. So for those who are listening who don't necessarily follow me or are part of my community, I had my first face-to-face retreat booked in January. My clients have been waiting all year for this. I have been waiting all the year for this. I have clients all over the world and I love online connection. I've mastered that ability to be able to coach someone to the point where I feel like I've met them in person and I haven't. And yet there's just something so special about that face-to-face and those immersive experiences. And the intention that I set for this retreat, and I've said this to my clients so many times, is I create the space. I've got the skeleton for what happens, but actually how a retreat unfolds is completely out of my control. And it always happens how it's meant to happen. It's going to teach us something and unravel. And I obviously didn't really understand how powerfully that would happen. Working between here and Bali, I've really learned to just surrender and let go, because plane times can change like that. The driver can change his mind about where he wants to take you. I gave a lot of flow to Bali, and it taught me a lot. When this retreat happened, I had that intention of really, we've got incredible leaders, incredible industry leaders coming together in this beautiful, intimate space. They're so used to holding space for other people and for leading big teams and big projects. And this was their opportunity to just surrender and lean back into what they wanted. And they have incredible years ahead of them. So my intention with this retreat was to really allow them to have these beautiful immersive experiences that would shift their perspectives and really allow them to fully step into that center stage that they're all so ready for in different aspects of their life. And it was amazing. The first night, everyone was having dinner, everyone was relaxed, and the biggest piece around my retreats when I bring people together is that beautiful schedule. We definitely have things that are planned, but there's a lot of, you can do this or you don't have to. There's a lot of choice there, so that they really step back into that embodied place of recognizing how powerful they are at making those, those choices for themselves, what's going to serve them. The first night I said I'm going down to meditate at sunrise, and you are more than welcome to join me, but you don't have to. Under no obligation, to which one of my precious clients said, of course I'm there, I'll be there. And she was there right on sunrise, and we had this amazing meditation, and it was a beautiful, beautiful sunrise, and it was so peaceful, and I was so excited for the week ahead. And I had to go and prep, and I actually didn't want to that morning because it was so beautiful. I would have much preferred to stay down, but I had an agreement to meet them all at a car at 6:45. So I went to prep, and I left her in a peaceful state. We joked about the fact that she was not going surfing. She was just going to hang out in the shallow water. And I went to prep, and I heard sirens. I had no idea that they had anything to do with my girls. The kind of there. And I, again, still assumed that she must have been helping out on the beach. I didn't even think of anything until I got halfway to the sand, and I got this really big drop in my gut. And that, again, that inner knowing just kicked in. And as I walked to the beach, I said to the policeman, I just need to, they stopped us, and I said, I just need to know that it's not one of my retreat clients. And it was, and in that moment, everything changed, right? And we can't plan for that. I had the entire week planned out, and it was meant to be this beautiful launch back into retreat, back into the year 2022 when we get to be in face-to-face. And one of my clients drowns. And not only was she a really, key client, I spoke to her almost every day, she was a really good friend. And she was a really good friend to, the women on retreat. And I had a choice then. I could send everyone home and cancel everything. And there was part of me in that moment that stepped back and did, practiced what I preach and answered all the questions that were being asked of me, and went through, detail. I knew her, medical history. I knew everything. And I was just going through. And in that moment, I was stepping back, and I was making that choice of, we've got a crossroad here. And we all have an opportunity to step back before stepping forward. This is where we can really embody that. And for the next few days, I was able to really give all of them that experience. And I'm grateful, and they're all moving through it in different ways, but they're moving through really powerfully in that leadership. And I have no idea what that deeper purpose is, I know that I have so much more respect for someone's fate, and that we cannot control everything around us.
Yeah.
We have very little control over what happens, around us. We do have the power to shift and to live forward, and the one thing, death is a really, it's a topic that we don't talk enough about. And there are so many people who are having really close experiences with death at the moment, and we're all grieving something. Whether we're grieving someone's life passing, or whether we're grieving a life that was, the business that was before COVID, whether we're grieving the freedoms that we used to experience and we don't experience anymore. And there's this big letting go. And so for me, there's a much deeper understanding in that grieving process and the importance of living a legacy now, and we think of legacy as something that we do when we're older, or it's a big project, it's that big stamp that we leave on life. What's that big thing that I'm going to do? Whereas legacy is how you live. It's who you be. So when I speak so much about doing less and being more, that has so much more purpose to it now, because who you be in every single day, if this was your last day on earth, that's how you leave it. And if we're waiting for some day when we can go overseas, or we can travel, or we can start that business again, we're wishing our life away. We're wasting time. And when we can, as we were saying before, do those tiny little things in every single day that bring us back to that sense of purpose, and that, that 1 minute of taking that step back and breathing can be that 1 minute of going, who do I want to be in this moment? Do I want to drop in with my child and actually be present, rather than thinking about the 30 things that I need to do? What is most important? And I think that part in inner work is the key.
It's such a powerful place to be able to be in, right? And for all of that to have unfolded, for you, for your clients, for the retreat members, and for you all to stay in that space and have and hold space for each other to learn and grow, I think is phenomenal. And the way that you're able to share that and articulate it in such a way that there is a purpose to it. And I cannot wait to see what that deeper purpose is. I know you're itching not to necessarily sit in the finding out process, but see what that comes to, because everything does happen for a reason, and we definitely can't control all of those things. But what we can be in the moment is exactly what you just said, what you're being, and in living that legacy, which I think has a lot of power, and that impact of your teachings and those learnings, the ripple effects are gonna just be unimaginable. So wow, thank you for sharing that and going there, because I think you're right, it's very important to talk about these things, and we don't talk about grief, death, loss, things out of our control happening, and it's very easy to fall into the wallowing sort of self-pity mode, rather than stepping back and embracing the change. So Kelly, I know you've got a few other retreats coming up. I know you do a lot of work with global leaders all over the place. And I am honored that I have, you in my world and consider you a friend. Where can people come and find you and learn more and be in your orbit for understanding and growing with this inside out leadership model?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Look, there is a free community that I run online on Facebook, where I drop in and do these tiny little moments from usually beautiful places around Noosa when it's not pouring with rain, and just give people an opportunity to step back in their day. So that's, access free. It's called the Embodied Leader. They can find it in Facebook, or you can put the links. My website is super easy, kellycarthy.com. I run a program, Unlimit, which I really designed from that perspective that everyone is overloaded, busy, doesn't have time. And I actually worked with my leaders, who are the beautiful example of people who hold a lot, to find a way in which we could do this kind of work with 5 minutes, with 10 minutes, and be able to break it into an 8-week experience where someone doesn't feel overloaded. Someone actually feels like they're unloading a whole lot and feeling a whole lot lighter at the end of it. So that will run again, probably April, May. And I'll have retreats coming up. Probably May is Noosa, and they're really intimate style retreats. So I limit them to 8 to 10 participants at a time, for that reason of being able to really have the experience of other leaders. I know from the work that I get to do that there's lots of support for people who are being led. But when someone's in a leadership role, whether it's in corporate or whether it's in their own business, there's kind of no back support there. They're expected to just hold it all. They're expected to be the strong one, right? The rock. Yep. And we all need that beautiful support. And it's not about someone telling you what to do. It's about someone reminding you to go back here. And that's why I love the work that I get to do.
Yeah, I love it. I love working, following, being, just as I said, in your orbit and leading these things, because I find it's incredibly powerful. And I know, as I said before, the impact that all your work and the teachings on those leaders is just magnificent. So thank you, Kelly, for sharing all of that, for being who you are, for embracing and just letting people be, I think, and leading them like with grace and with such integrity, because you are definitely living a life of legacy in everything that you do. So thank you so much for spending time with me this morning. It's been an absolute honor.
Always an honor to spend time with you. Thank you.
Thank you. So for everyone listening and watching, I'll put everything Kelly's talked about today in the show notes and in the comments. Thank you again for tuning in. And Kelly, once more, thanks for joining.